On a freezing February afternoon, when the sun was already dipping behind the jagged mountains, and the shadows stretched long across valleys buried in heavy snow, a family of three, Thomas, a father in his 40s, his wife Anna, and their 16-year-old daughter Sophie, along with their loyal German shepherd Max, set out on what was meant to be a simple 2-hour trek near their winter cabin, a tradition the family had followed every year to celebrate Thomas's birthday, never realizing that this ordinary walk would spiral into one of the most harrowing ordeals of their lives, a story later whispered around campfires, retold in survival documentaries, and splashed across European headlines under the haunting title, Dog Rescue Gone Wrong. But they survived, because what began with laughter, the crunch of boots on snow, and a family photo taken on a frosted ridge would soon unravel into a desperate fight for survival against nature's cruelest side when the weather turned faster than anyone could predict. Thick snow clouds rolling in like an invading army. Winds rising with a ferocity that felt almost alive. And the trail, once clear and welcoming, vanishing beneath a blizzard so sudden and merciless that within minutes the familiar landscape was erased, leaving only a swirling white void where every step forward felt like a step deeper into oblivion, disorienting them, blinding them, and draining their confidence with each passing second. At first, they laughed it off, thinking the storm would pass, Thomas tightening his scarf, Anna squeezing Sophie's hand, Sophie brushing flakes from Max's ears as the dog barked playfully at the swirling snow. But laughter soon gave way to dread as visibility dropped to less than a meter. The cold gnawed through their coats, their phones lost all signal, and the family realized with sinking horror that they were hopelessly lost, their map damp and unreadable, their compass spinning erratically, as if mocking them, while around them the forested valley transformed into a labyrinth of snowdrifts, ridges, and hollow echoes. And yet, through the chaos, Max became their anchor, his black and brown coat a moving beacon in the storm, his sharp instincts guiding them where human logic failed, his barking cutting through the howling winds like a lifeline, his circling nudges keeping Sophie moving forward when she stumbled or faltered in the deep snow, his warm body pressing against them whenever the cold threatened to steal their strength. But as hours dragged on and daylight bled away behind the storm's dark curtain, the family's energy dwindled, their hands and feet growing numb, their breaths shallow and painful. And just when they thought things couldn't grow worse, the ground betrayed them, for the snow beneath Thomas's boots suddenly caved in, collapsing into an unseen hollow carved by hidden meltwater. And in the blink of an eye, he was gone, swallowed by a jagged crevasse, his scream ripping through the blizzard, echoing in Sophie's ears as she and Anna fell to their knees at the edge, clawing desperately at the snow where only a black moor yawned below. Shock rooted them in place, mother and daughter screaming his name into the void, their voices swallowed by the wind, their tears freezing on their cheeks, and before either could react, Max leapt without hesitation into the darkness after his master, vanishing into the abyss, the sound of his paws scratching ice and his frantic barking echoing faintly from below. Panic surged. Sophie clung to Anna, trembling, whispering they had to do something. But the icy slope was sheer and deadly, impossible to descend without ropes, and so the two stood helpless at the rim, shouting into the abyss, praying for a reply. And then, through the storm, faint and ragged, they heard it, Thomas's voice, hoarse and strained, calling up that he was alive but trapped, his leg twisted at a sickening angle from the fall, pain clawing at every breath. But Max was with him, the dog licking his face, pressing against him, barking furiously, as if commanding Anna and Sophie not to despair, as if reminding Thomas that he was not alone. With night descending fast, Anna knew they could not abandon the rim, so she and Sophie huddled together under a pine, their bodies shaking uncontrollably, snow piling on their shoulders, whispering prayers into the howling void. While below, Thomas waged a lonely battle with agony and exhaustion. His only comfort, the steady presence of Max, who stretched his body across his chest to share warmth, whose rhythmic breathing steadied his panicked heart, whose refusal to rest kept him tethered to life itself. That night stretched into eternity, the storm unrelenting, the forest echoing with the groans of bending branches and the distant howl of wolves carried on the wind. And Thomas, slipping in and out of consciousness, whispered apologies into Max's fur, whispered gratitude for his loyalty, believing the snow would be his grave. Yet each time his eyes drifted too long, Max would paw at his face, bark sharply, lick his cheek until he stirred, refusing to let him surrender, as though some primal part of the dog understood that his human's life depended on it. Above, Anna and Sophie endured their own torment, pacing in circles to fight off frostbite, clutching each other, shouting into the storm, straining their ears for Thomas's replies. Until finally, near dawn, the storm broke just enough for them to see faint movement in the distance. Dark figures emerging through the mist, headlamps bobbing, ropes slung over shoulders. The rescue team alerted when the family failed to check in at the cabin, braving the blizzard with trained dogs straining at their leashes, their shouts echoing through the valley. And with a burst of desperate relief, Anna waved her arms, screaming until her throat was raw, guiding them to the crevasse where Thomas and Max lay. And so began the most dangerous part of the ordeal, the rescue itself. Ropes were secured, anchors driven into the frozen ground, and one rescuer rappelled into the pit, his breath fogging, his gloves gripping the rope tight as he descended into darkness, where he found Thomas pale, shivering, barely conscious, his leg grotesquely twisted, Max pressed tightly against him, growling protectively at the stranger until soothed with gentle words and calm hands. With practiced speed, they fitted Thomas into a harness, secured Max with a sling, and began the perilous ascent, every creak of rope echoing like thunder in Anna's chest as she clutched Sophie's hand, both of them praying with every second that nothing would go wrong, until finally, Thomas's broken body emerged into daylight, Max scrambling at his side, both man and dog lifted back from the jaws of death. Anna and Sophie collapsed onto him, sobbing with relief, their frozen tears falling onto his face, while Max, exhausted and coated in snow, stood over them with unwavering watchfulness, as if daring the storm to try and take them again. But the ordeal was not yet over, for the long trek back to safety remained. Rescuers forming a stretcher, carrying Thomas across waist-deep drifts, while the storm threatened to rise again, Anna and Sophie stumbling at their side, Max padding tirelessly, despite bleeding paws, never once leaving Thomas's sight. Hours passed in grueling silence, broken only by the crunch of boots and the ragged breath of exhausted humans and animals alike, until at last the cabin lights came into view, a beacon of survival piercing the endless white. And when they finally staggered inside, collapsing near the roaring fire the rescue team had prepared, the family clung together as though they would never let go again. In the days that followed, As doctors set Thomas's leg in a hospital bed and reporters crowded for interviews, the story spread far and wide, not of tragedy, but of improbable survival. A survival credited not just to the rescuers, but to Max, the dog who refused to leave, who gave his warmth, his voice, his very spirit, to keep his human alive through the longest night of their lives. Experts marveled at the bond. Psychologists explained how Thomas's will to live was anchored by Max's presence. Survivalists praised the dog as a hero, but for the family, it was simpler. Max was not just a pet, he was their guardian angel, their savior in fur, the silent reason their nightmare ended in survival. And as the story stretched on, retold in every detail of terror, endurance, and deliverance, it grew into one of those modern legends that remind us all of the fragile line between life and death in the wild, and of the extraordinary courage animals summon when humans falter. Because though this was a rescue gone terribly wrong, it was also the devotion of a dog that ensured the ending was not death, but life. Not despair, but hope. And this truth will echo in their hearts forever. A truth that ripples outward wherever the tale is told, inspiring awe, gratitude, and wonder at the heroism of a four-legged friend who proved once again that sometimes the greatest rescues are not carried out by human hands, but by paws, loyalty, and an unyielding heart that refuses to let go.